Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer. Take a trip into the macabre world of goth modeling in the new millennium in this spooktacular Spinsterella story. Pick up your copy of Spinsterella Goth Girl Summer in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Historical couples in crisis. One of my viewers wanted me to do another installment in the Historical Couples in Crisis series. And for this installment in the Historical Couples in Crisis series, I'm going to be talking about teen mom stars Kailyn Lowry, Javi, Marroquin, and Brianna DeJesus. Now, the first person in this Historical Couples in Crisis video I'm going to be talking about is MTV teen mom star Kailyn Lowry. Now, Kailyn Lowry was one of the stars of the MTV reality show Teen Mom, and she basically wound up having, I believe, 4 children by 3 different men in a series of very toxic relationships. And the foundation for those toxic relationships that led to her becoming a woman in crisis basically was the dysfunctional home that she grew up in. Now, Kailyn Lowry's whole life basically became a complete mess because she was born into a single mother home where she never knew her father. And since she never knew her father, she never had that man in her life to establish order and structure in her life. Moreover, she didn't have that man to nurture her and give her emotional security. And without that man to give her emotional security, Kailyn Lowry already started out on a foundation of insecurity because she never knew her father whatsoever. And even worse than that, she didn't get to know her mother because her mother was a very irresponsible and flaky woman, a woman who basically went on any whim and never really cared for Kailyn whatsoever. And with nobody there to really care for Kailyn whatsoever, this is what led to, I believe, Kailyn having mental health problems, and all that were rooted in a foundation of extreme insecurity from never getting her physical needs met by her mother or her emotional needs met by her father. And as Kailyn Lowry basically grew up with no sense of structure or any sense of order established by her parents, she started on a road to becoming an extremely chaotic person, a woman who basically radiates a spirit of chaos all throughout herself. And as she radiates this aura of chaos, Kailyn Lowry basically was out here looking for love, looking to find the love of a mother who would basically be someone to give her some guidance, and looking for the father who would nurture her, looking for somebody to love her. And that's what basically led to her getting involved with her first baby daddy in Joe Rivera. Now, Joe Rivera basically came from a healthy household. He was living with his parents, and as he was living with his parents, this young adolescent basically got involved with Kailyn Lowry, not understanding that Kailyn Lowry was basically a woman who was filled with chaos. And as he tried to go out here and try to get involved with her as a teenager, looking for his first girlfriend, he got involved with a very toxic teenage girl, a toxic teenage girl who he had hoped to try to take care of like a teenage boy usually tries to do, because they don't really understand manhood and don't understand that when it comes down to women like Kailyn Lowry, there's not much you can do for them. No, there's not much you can do because their foundation is very rickety due to the dysfunction that they learned early on. This was the culture that they learned. But Joe Rivera tried to give Kailyn Lowry structure, and his mother tried to go out here and nurture Kailyn. But sadly, everything with her was basically set by the single mother that she grew up with. And sadly, what happened with Kailyn Lowry is she became just like her mother. Kailyn Lowry became just like her mother, and just became just as irresponsible and flaky as her mother, just going on every whim. And as she was going out here here going on every whim. Joe Rivera, who was an adolescent, didn't really understand that as a man, you just don't get involved with this type of girl. Thought he could go out here and hope to help make her life better. Hoped to make her life better by giving her structure and order. But sadly, she brought her chaos into his home as she was living with him. And as they were living with each other and sleeping in bed together, eventually what happened with Kailyn Lowry is she eventually became pregnant as a teenager. And as she became pregnant, this is where Joe Rivera's simple life turned into a life filled with chaos and drama, because now, as a teenager, he could no longer enjoy the carefree life of an adolescent. He had to take the responsibilities of a man too early on. And eventually he tried to go out here and marry Kailyn Lowry. He tried to marry her and tried to build a family. But you can't build a family with a woman who has no structure and no order in her life. And you can't establish structure and order for a woman who doesn't know how to function as related to that. And that's where Kailyn Lowry's life basically turned Joe Rivera's life into complete chaos. And it was turned into complete chaos because this woman in crisis was never really taught the foundations of her role as a woman in God's order. She was never taught female life skills or female survival skills, or know how to work with a man and be a helpmeet to him. No, she was looking for love and looking to just attach herself onto the first man who paid attention to her, or anyone who paid attention to her. And because she never got her emotional needs met, basically this is what led to Kailyn Lowry becoming, as I see it, extremely unstable, because according to some articles, they say that Kailyn Lowry wound up with bipolar disorder. And again, this disorder basically made it where she was, again, very erratic as related to her behavior. And that's what led to an extremely tumultuous relationship between Joe Rivera and Kailyn Lowry. Joe basically was trying to lead this woman, but you can't lead a bipolar woman, because one minute she's all function, she's manic, and then the next minute she's depressive and she's very emotional. So this guy basically wound up in a situation with an unstable woman having a son with her, and as he had a son with her, basically their life became complete chaos, complete chaos to the point where Joe wanted to again end this marriage and then wound up divorcing Kailyn Lowry, wound up divorcing her, and looking to try to get custody of his son, because the mother was just completely cracked because this woman was a mess. And that breakup basically wound up devastating Kailyn Lowry because of the spirit, because she had the spirit and DNA of Joe Rivera inside of her. And as she had the spirit and DNA of this man inside of her, this caused even more chaos, because I have to wonder if Joe Rivera was her first boyfriend. I have to wonder, because when it comes down to girls like this, they are extremely sexually promiscuous, and they have possibly have multiple partners in that quest for love. And as they have that sexual promiscuity, it leads to them having this erratic spirit where it's just they're winding up again, completely falling apart. And after Joe wound up breaking up with her and again looking to again leave her, the soul tie was still there, and that's what devastated her as she saw him move on with another woman, V. Torres, and then eventually marry her, and then had a daughter with her, and then move on. And then after he moved on, she never got over him because she still had that soul tie connected to him. And as she had this soul tie connected to him, what happened with Kailyn Lowry is that she became further unstable. And as she became more unstable, what happened with Kailyn Lowry is that she decided to get involved with another guy. And this is where she went from being with a regular man to a cleanup man in Javi Marroquin. And as she got involved with Javi Marroquin, her life fell further completely apart. And as her life fell further apart, she basically wound up having even more drama with Javi. And again, Javi was not a good fit because she didn't respect Javi at all. She didn't respect him, and she didn't respect him whatsoever, because she just basically, again, was just with him as related to things, because she was looking for love again and looking to attach herself to whoever, but she still had feelings for Joe Rivera, and eventually wound up cheating on Javi with this guy Joe. And again, her life basically got even worse after that. And then she eventually wound up, again, I believe, going out here and marrying this other guy, Javi Marroquin. And as she married Javi Marroquin, again, a man she didn't respect, basically a guy who was a cleanup man because he had a job in the military, because this is part of her hypergamy. She looked to monkey branch over to this other guy and looked to clean up her reputation, with this guy, Javi. And after this, she then got involved with her third baby daddy in Chris Lopez. Again, this is one of the four men that she had 4 children with, going to marry and divorce. But the foundation for her whole relationship falling completely apart is Kailyn Lowry. Kailyn Lowry, as she was having this whole situation with Javi, eventually wound up with some drama with another woman named Brianna DeJesus, which basically showed how dysfunctional she was. And Brianna DeJesus in herself was a complete wreck of a woman, similar to Kailyn Lowry. But the whole situation with Kailyn Lowry, as related to her dysfunction, started with her not having a good relationship with her mother or her father. And without that foundation and structure established by a mother and a father, a girl like Kailyn Lowry grows up to become a woman in crisis. And Kailyn Lowry grew up to become a woman in crisis who basically wound up having 4 children by, I believe, 3 different men or 4 different men, depends on what report you read. And sadly, what she's doing is perpetuating a cycle of children becoming children of the corn that grow up to become men and women in crisis. That's what happened here with Kailyn Lowry, as related to the numerous relationships that she had with multiple relationships with multiple men, where she never found any sort of love whatsoever, because she never got the foundations in order to become a woman, and sadly just became yet another woman in crisis. Now, the second person I'm going to be talking about in this historical couples in crisis video is Kailyn Lowry's second ex-husband and second baby daddy, Javi Marroquin. Now, Javi Marroquin is the second baby daddy and second ex-husband of Kailyn Lowry, as related to the 4 men that she actually had 7 children with. And Javi Marroquin basically came into this whole situation because, as one of these men in crisis, he never learned about how to be a man from his father, nor did he learn about how to take the lead in a relationship. Because what happened with Javi Marroquin, basically, he was not only a man in crisis, like I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis, he was also a simp, like I talk about in my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance. And he was the worst type of simp. He basically was a cleanup man to Joe Rivera. Now, as Kailyn Lowry and Joe Rivera were having their tumultuous relationship, Kailyn Lowry decided to get involved with Javi Marroquin. And as she got involved with Javi Marroquin, she got involved with a simp, because this guy already knew that she had a child. And usually any smart man out here knows to avoid any single mother, like I talk about in my blogs and my classic video, Why Real Men Avoid Single Mothers, because this woman isn't emotionally available because of the DNA and spirit soul tie that she has with the man that she previously had a sexual relationship with and was married to. And when it came to Kailyn Lowry, she basically was a cauldron of dysfunction due to the home that she grew up in and the fact that she was looking for love from a man to nurture her. And that, combined with the DNA and soul ties that she had with Joe Rivera, made her extremely unstable. But when it came down to Javi Marroquin, he was one of these guys looking to go out here and look to pursue this relationship with Kailyn Lowry, possibly because he believed that she would be able to get easier sexual access, possibly by offering her a two-piece chicken dinner or whatever, and basically got involved with this woman, even though she was having issues with her ex-husband and was in the middle of a custody battle. Javi got with this woman, thinking that, again, he could get easy sexual access and possibly could shape and mold her into the woman that he wanted, not understanding that because this woman already had the spirit and DNA of Joe Rivera and had a child with him, she basically had no way to bond with him and could not bond with him because of all the issues she had with her past life as related to the issues as the way she was raised and possibly later mental health issues possibly. And this woman couldn't bond with him and just basically didn't have any respect for him at all. No, when it came to Javi Marroquin, she was a man that Kailyn Lowry had no respect for, and he had no respect for himself because he got involved with this single mother. He got involved with this single mother, hoping to again look to build a relationship with her, hoping to shape himself into an idealized man by going into the military. He hoped that eventually he could go out here and become a man in the military. But if a man doesn't have any essentials as related to male life skills or male survival skills, he's not going to know how to function as a man. And basically, as he was looking to get involved with this woman, she was basically looking to use him to be her cleanup man. Now, I talk about cleanup men in a recent video. And again, a cleanup man's role is basically a guy who's there to clean up the reputation of a woman who's coming out of a failed relationship or is basically has a scandalous reputation, and women basically use a cleanup man like they use toilet paper to wipe themselves after they've relieved themselves on the toilet. And once they've finished cleaning themselves up, cleaning up their reputation, cleaning up their image, they then go out here and discard the cleanup man and flush him down the toilet so nobody will know all about the dirt that she has as related to her reputation and her image. And that's basically what she saw Javi Marroquin as. She saw him as a cleanup man, but this cleanup man again wound up in a mess as related to things because he didn't know how to be a man. He didn't know how to identify female predators as related to things or situations that would be toxic. And that's what led to him getting involved with Kailyn Lowry and thinking he could fix the situation as related to Kailyn Lowry. I mean, this is what many guys who are cleanup men think they can do. They think they can go out here and fix a broken woman, but this woman is beyond your ability to go out here and repair whatsoever. And no, because she's beyond your ability to repair whatsoever, there's nothing you can do to lead this woman because her whole program is basically completely screwed up. And when it came down to Kailyn Lowry, her whole mind was completely screwed up due to the unstable life that she had been raised in. And Joe Rivera basically saw how dysfunctional things were and wanted to get out of them and get custody of his son. But due to the gynocentric family courts, he couldn't get custody of his son. Sadly, he wound up in a bad situation. And sadly, when it came to Javi Marroquin, he couldn't look at the pattern as related to this woman and see, okay, this woman already was married and divorced at an early age, and she's got a kid. Her life is, again, a complete mess. She's already showing me signs that she is broken, but instead he went on thinking he could put on a cape and a Mickey Mouse galoshes and play Calvin save him. And sadly, all that happened to Javi Marroquin is he wound up in a even equally tumultuous marriage and wound up with an equally tumultuous marriage with this woman as he went into the military. And as she went out here, and when he went into the military, she wound up cheating on him with her first baby daddy or husband, Joe Rivera. And as he married her, she then, while he was in the military, she began an affair with a third man in Chris Lopez. And as he began an affair with Chris Lopez, this is where he wound up in a situation, again, looking to file for divorce. And again, file for divorce as she got involved with this man. But as things were going on, he was also looking to, again, make Kailyn Lowry jealous by getting involved with Brianna DeJesus. And as he got involved with Brianna DeJesus, he was looking to make Kailyn Lowry jealous. And Kailyn and Brianna wound up having a feud where he was hoping to see them have a cat fight. This is where the simp basically was looking to get attention and get pleasure from seeing this woman, again, be humiliated, because a man who loves his wife is not gonna, or his ex-wife, or wants to have a healthy relationship, ain't gonna be out here looking to make a woman jealous. He's just gonna charge her to the game the way Joe Rivera wound up charging her to the game. But this guy, again, basically, he was looking, because he was one of these cleanup men and one of these simps, what he wanted to do was look to go out here and spite Kailyn Lowry, look to spite Kailyn Lowry for having that affair with Chris Lopez, who became the third baby daddy while Javi was deployed. I mean, Kailyn Lowry basically, again, looking for love, but never really able to find it, because she was just a dysfunctional woman and was the, again, a common denominator as related to all of the failures, as related to things. And this guy, again, Javi, basically Marroquin, he was a dysfunctional guy, again, going from woman to woman, winding up creating his own series of baby mamas, the same way that Kailyn Lowry was basically a baby mama for multiple men, and again, was a man in crisis, because he didn't understand his role as a man, did not know how to take the lead as related to his own life, because had he known how to take the lead as related to his own life, he never would have gotten involved with Kailyn Lowry. No, any critical thinking man would have said, okay, this woman is a single mom. She got kids by another man. What I'm going to do is not even pay her no attention. She's not even worth my time. But this simp, because he had low self-esteem and low self-worth, basically thought he could clean up another man's mess. And this cleanup man basically didn't clean up a mess. He just made an even bigger mess out of his own life, trying to clean up the mess as related to Kailyn Lowry's life. And Kailyn Lowry had no respect for him whatsoever as a man, because she didn't look to follow his lead and be a helpmeet to him. No, she looked to become a bigger problem, because she basically flaked out on their relationship the same way she flaked out on Joe Rivera's relationship. And sadly, this dude could not identify patterns and have the foresight to see where things were going, and he wound up in one chaotic relationship after another, wound up getting involved with relationship after relationship where things just didn't work, and just showed me he wasn't ready to be a man, because he wound up becoming a man in crisis. A man in crisis, which basically had 3 kids by 3 different women, and eventually wound up marrying another woman named Lauren Kamau. And basically, he's with this woman right now, who basically became another baby mama for him. And again, as related to things, now she married her, but she still was chaos. And again, his whole life was chaos, because he never had a foundation in learning male life skills or male survival skills. He thought he could learn this in the military, but a man can't learn male life skills in the military. He has to learn from his father the basic foundations of being a man. And now he's a guy basically trying to maintain co-parenting with Kailyn Lowry as he's moved to another state. And as he's moved to this other state, he basically is still dealing with baby mama drama from 3 different women, and 2 different women as related to things, because he had, again, 2 kids by Lauren, and then had this child with Kailyn. And again, basically, there's just so many kids that our lives are being messed up, because this man basically was a man in crisis, who basically got himself in a situation looking to, again, be the cleanup man. But that whole decision to become a cleanup man made a complete mess of his life. Now, the third and final person I will be talking about in this historical couples in crisis series is one of Javi Marroquin's girlfriends, Brianna DeJesus. Now, Brianna DeJesus was involved with Javi Marroquin during the time he had divorced Kailyn Lowry, and Javi Marroquin basically went and got involved with Brianna DeJesus only to go out here to make Kailyn Lowry jealous during their divorce. So the foundations for their relationship was dysfunctional. However, Brianna DeJesus in and of herself was a very dysfunctional woman, and was on the road to becoming a woman in crisis due to the extremely dysfunctional home that she wound up growing up in. Now, like Kailyn Lowry, Brianna DeJesus grew up in a dysfunctional home with dysfunctional parents, and sadly, in Brianna DeJesus' home, she never was able to receive any sort of love, nurturing, or care, because both of her parents were heroin addicts. And according to one article, it states that Brianna DeJesus basically had to deal with her family's drug addiction. And sadly, because of her parents' drug addiction, this is what led to her being addicted to looking for love from someone outside of her family because her mother was not there to give her any sort of structure or teach her about her role as being a woman, and her father was never there to nurture her or be able to meet her emotional needs the way I talk about in my book, The Woman Crisis. Sadly, since neither of her parents were there to meet her her physical needs or her emotional or spiritual needs, Brianna DeJesus became a very empty woman, who basically grew up and wound up growing on a road to dysfunction, looking for love outside of her family. And that basically took her to a point where she wound up going to a club. And as she went to a club, she met a guy who she had a vibe with. And as she met this guy, they had a one-night stand. As teenagers had this one-night stand. And as they had this one-night stand, eventually what happened to Brianna DeJesus is that she wound up pregnant. And as Brianna DeJesus wound up pregnant by this guy, I think his name is Jose. That's all we really know about him. I think that's his name. And then she got involved with another guy, Luis Hernandez, I believe, as related to things. As she got younger, she got involved with these two guys, and again, didn't think about what type of man that she was getting involved with, because basically what she wanted was attention. And because this guy was paying her attention and making her feel good, she hooked up with these two guys and eventually wound up having two kids by these two different men. And sadly, after having these children, she thought she could have a covert contract where these men would look to commit to her, but they basically just bounced and left her. And as they left her, she was basically left all by herself without anybody to give her any sort of guidance on how to be a mother. And these men didn't want to be fathers whatsoever. I mean, the father of her first child just basically disappeared for years. And then we had the second guy come in, and he basically was in and out of her life. And sadly, what happened with Brianna DeJesus is that she became a very chaotic woman, similar to Kailyn Lowry. And basically, what happened with Brianna DeJesus is that as she was looking for love, she had basically been scarred by these relationships, because when women have sex and get out here and bond with these men, and the men don't share the bond and sever the bond, what happens is that the spirit and DNA of that man is inside of them. And with her having two different men, they were pulling at her. And as they were pulling at her, they were making her just as unstable as Kailyn Lowry, and that led to a really very crazy situation for Javi Marroquin. Now, Javi Marroquin, basically what he wanted to do when he got involved with Brianna DeJesus, he didn't want to get involved with her and looking to clean up her life. No, he was hoping to use her as a tool to go out here and spite Kailyn Lowry and show her that he could get a better woman. But the sad part with many beta males is that they wind up stuck in a pattern of getting involved with the same woman over and over again. And that's basically what happened here with this guy, Javi Marroquin. He got involved with the same woman, but in a different color, in Brianna DeJesus. Because if we look at Kailyn Lowry and Brianna DeJesus, they basically have similar styles of body types, similar tight tattoos on their bodies, and have multiple children by multiple different men. Again, Javi Marroquin basically showing me, again, the classic beta male pattern of getting the same woman in a different color, thinking that he can spite another woman, thinking he could make another woman jealous, thinking he could make another woman get upset and want to come back to him, even though she had divorced him. Again, he wanted to spite Kailyn Lowry, but wound up getting involved with this toxic woman. And as he got involved with this toxic woman, she basically was a woman in crisis. She basically was not in a place where she could care for her children the same way that her mother couldn't care for her. And sadly, she wound up participating in following in the footsteps of her mother in dysfunction, again, looking for love with different guys, getting involved with all types of trauma. And as she got involved with all types of trauma, it basically caused chaos on the Teen Mom show. I mean, she's basically, again, in this whole situation, and in this situation where her life is a complete mess. a complete mess because she didn't get a foundation in learning her role as a woman, not learning her role as a woman and looking to be a helpmeet to a man, and not understanding on how to be a part of a relationship with a man where she could follow his lead. No, she doesn't know how to work with men, and again, because she got with the wrong men. Those men basically are not in her daughter's lives, and she is looking to basically get out of her own daughter's life, asking her sister to adopt one of her daughters because she basically was completely overwhelmed as related to the whole situation. But the whole situation was sadly created when her mother basically wasn't in her life, and because her mother wasn't in her life, this woman has 2 kids before she's 30 years old, and basically her life is a complete mess. And again, a complete mess where she got involved with Javi Marroquin, again, not because he was looking for love, but looking to use somebody as a tool. And that's sadly what happened here with this woman. She basically was used by guys because she was looking for love. And as she was looking for love, she looked to offer her body to different men, hoping that if she offered her body to these different men and offered them sex, that could possibly lead to love in a covert contract. But that contract is never fulfilled because those women are not open and honest about what they want. They don't even know what they want in most cases. And as they get involved with these type of toxic men, again, these women wind up in crisis, wind up with their lives in complete chaos. And that's what happened here to Brianna DeJesus. She basically was in a life that was in complete chaos, just like Kailyn Lowry's life was in complete chaos. And all of these stories basically show me how the complete decline of the American family is leading to a man and woman crisis in this country that goes on from generation to generation, where dysfunction is passed on as a social norm from generation to generation. And with the whole story of all 3 of these women, we see, really 2 women and a man, basically, all of them, their lives are a complete mess because their first teachers didn't teach them the basics as related to God's natural order, did not teach them the basics as related to their roles as men and women. And as they had to learn on their own, they didn't learn what they needed to know. And instead of them learning how to create a functional family, they basically wound up creating children of the corn that will grow up to become the next generation of men and women in crisis. Now, if you want to learn how to identify the behaviors of men and women in crisis and help to try to break out of that pattern, you can pick up my books, The Man Crisis, The Woman Crisis, and Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. And you can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft to Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, and big box retailers like Walmart and Target. And if you want to learn how to identify female predators so that you can't get jammed up as a man, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance on Amazon.com so that you don't wind up in a situation like Javi Marroquin, being a cleanup man and trying to clean up a hot mess of somebody else's relationship with a dysfunctional woman. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can drop a donation for a minimum of $15 to the PayPal or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl. The aspiring angel takes on a wicked teenage witch in this action-packed, all-new Esteemed series adventure. Pick up your copy of Esteemed Season of the Witch Girl in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Man Crisis, comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today.
Now available for the first time in paperback, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Learn all the reasons why so many Black women can't find a husband and why 70% of Black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today.
Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.